I feel like Elvis has joined us. He's here. He's with me.
Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinnells, and tonight I'm very excited to have a brand new guest to the program, yet someone I have known, again, almost all my life. She came in during my teenage years and was a very good friend during that time. Please welcome, today known as Jen Leland, but to me, just like I have my Jenny Blades, I have my Jen Hen.
Hi, Eric. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It sure has.
What happened is Tom Cole is one of my normal guests. Well, normal's too strong a term for Tom, but one of my regular guests, and he was supposed to come tonight. But he had to change his schedule, so he's going to come in next week and talk about something different. But I wanted to get this episode out, and I wanted preferably not to do it alone, so I put out the word on Facebook, and I literally said in it, because I always put these kinds of things out, like, hey, if I need someone to help me with whatever, and I get, like, no responses. But I said, hey, if anyone's available tomorrow night, I need somebody to come and talk about the Ghost of Elvis Presley, because we're coming up on the 40th anniversary of his death on August 16th.
Wow, 40 years.
Yeah, we'll be actually slightly early, but I figured that's better to be early than late, and then, you don't mess up the dates or whatever, So luckily, Jen said she was available, and I said, I would love to have you over. So this is your very first podcast.
My very first.
Well, I was about to say that actually the first episode I did was mine, but that's not true.
No?
I first appeared on Penn Jillette's podcast, Penn Sunday School.
Ah.
So technically that was the first podcast I ever did. But then the first episode of this one was my second. So it's very easy here. It's very laid back. We're just going to talk about the ghosts. I was explaining to Jen earlier that back in, I think it was in June, we did an episode about the death of Elvis Presley and all the conspiracies around it and how he might still be alive, or at least lived longer than they said he did originally. And it was actually a very popular episode. So, of course, just like Hollywood, when something's popular, we want a sequel. But I did figure this was timely because it is the 40th anniversary. And we're going to talk about Elvis's ghosts and where you might be able to spot him. And just a couple of the stories about him. I honestly couldn't find a lot of, I was hoping for some good Elvis stories online. I only found two, really, that were interesting. Then there were people that said, oh, I was at Graceland and I saw him looking through the window. But that was it.
Oh, that's not much of a story.
No. Or there'll be psychics who talk about feeling the vibe. Well, I felt his vibe in the kitchen, and, it's okay. So, Jen.
So, Eric.
Listeners to this podcast already know my opinion on ghosts. I don't believe in them. But we got to get your perspective. What are your thoughts?
I don't believe in anything.
Okay. So we're on the same page.
Yep.
So we're the perfect people to host this episode about ghosts.
And my wow about when you said the 40th anniversary. I mean, Elvis is somebody who's been dead my whole life, but I'm just about 40, so really I almost overlapped with him. That's what my wow was about. I thought he'd been dead for, I don't know,
no, he was 42.
A long time, but 40 isn't a long time ago anymore.
No, it wasn't a long time ago, and he was only 42 when he died.
Oh, wow.
It seems like he was older. I knew he wasn't an old man, but I don't know. I thought maybe closer to 50 in my head.
42 isn't very old. Gosh.
No, I know, but I'm saying...
I know.
Yeah.
It used to be old.
Yeah. Well, when you're 20, you think it's
right.
Even in 20.
We shouldn't talk about this anymore. Let's talk about Elvis.
Well, I do want to talk a little bit about it, but first I want to tell people that they can visit my website, the show's website, spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place, and that's the show's blog page. There you can listen to this episode and every episode, and you can also find links to all of our social media, including Twitter and Instagram, which are both at spookyasshit, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. There. I'm getting pretty good at that.
It sounded very fluent.
I say pretty much the same thing every week. I might add in little things here and there, but pretty much the same thing every week. Now, Elvis, like I said, we did an episode before. not too long ago about Elvis, and I'm an Elvis fan. You can see I've got a picture hanging in my hallway.
He does. It's
of
true.
Elvis.
I can see.
Yeah. That is from Aloha in Hawaii. You can tell because he's wearing the lei in the picture. And that is jumpsuit Elvis. But he's still pretty trim. Pretty trim young guy.
Definitely.
And then I think that was in the early 70s, maybe 1970 or 70, maybe up to 72. I forget exactly. But he died in 77. And there's a concert of him, like I think from June of that year, maybe, or May, just a few months before he died. So I was watching Aloha from Hawaii, a little bit of that, and then I watched his final concert, a little bit of that, before we did the last episode, and I noticed something, both a little bit sad, but also pretty funny.
Okay.
There's moments in Elvis concerts where he's wearing the scarf,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And he dabs his sweat, and then he goes to the audience, and he lets the girls, well, at this point, they're like 60-year-old women, or whatever, take the scarf off his neck, and then they, and he puts another one on, he goes over and he kisses a woman, and he, like whatever. And in Aloha from Hawaii, he's like bending down into the audience and like, kissing the girls or letting them kiss him and like giving them hugs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But by his last concert, when he wasn't like quite in shape anymore, he'd kind of let himself go, and he looked like he might have been on like maybe prednisone or something. Like his face was very moon faced and just he didn't look so great. Apparently his energy had gone a bit too, because he's like walking around like singing, love me tender, and he just like hands the scarf off, like he doesn't like bend over or like reach out and like hug anybody. He just kind of like tosses the scarf out like very haphazardly. I'm just saying, watch the two videos back to back, both sad but funny as well. So anyway, we're going to talk about a few places where you're supposed to be able to see Elvis's ghost, and in my mind, some make more sense than others. It makes sense to me, if you're going to believe in ghosts, that your ghost would haunt like where you lived.
Makes sense.
I can understand that. Or it could haunt where you died.
Yeah.
Sure, your spirit leaves the body, gets confused, it's hanging around there. In Elvis's case, those were the same place. He died in Graceland. I can even understand to a point, like if you have a favorite place, like if you're Elvis, maybe a favorite performance venue or something like that, you're haunting that space.
Okay.
I've never understood stories about the ghost haunting graves. Because, I mean, I guess it depends on when you think the spirit leaves the body or whatever, but why would you be attached to the grave? Like you weren't there in life? Why would you be attached to it?
Good question. I
After
never
death?
thought of that.
Yeah. Well, some people will say it's because that's where the grieving happens. So wherever like the emotion is brought, that's where you. I would imagine that would be their reasoning. And yet other people might just say, "Well, look, you're talking about something that is beyond our understanding, and you can't think about it in rational terms because it's not that way. And it's possible that a ghost haunts not just one place, but many places."
Ooh, this is deep.
Yeah. So that's kind of what you have to believe is going on here. Or it could just be a celebrity that people want to attach themselves to any way they can, even if it means like, oh, he's haunting this place, even though we're only like barely tangentially attached to the story of Elvis himself.
Very possible.
Yeah. So we're going to get into those, but let's start right in Graceland, which of course was the home that Elvis had built for himself, and now it's basically a museum for Elvis fans. And the Presley estate owns it, so sometimes Pricilla and Lisa Marie and other family members might actually be in residence, although I imagine that they probably have their own places by now. I don't know exactly what the deal is. But interestingly, my day job, I work with adults with disabilities. And one of the skills that we work on is, well, we used to work on more back in the day, was letter writing.
Oh.
And like not just, it was about them like physically writing a letter or at least being able to sign their own name. But also the conversation was like, what do you say to somebody in a letter? What's appropriate to say? What's not appropriate? Like what, those kind of skills. And then of course, like how do you mail a letter? Like we'd work on all that stuff. But one of the ways we made it fun was that we would write to celebrities around their birthday.
Oh, I see.
and we would make a birthday card. So that way, like, even the folks who, like, you know, maybe couldn't write or even were nonverbal and couldn't add in that way, they could still help to decorate a card,
Sure.
you know, so everybody had, like, a hand in it. So we'd write a letter or letters and put them all together with the card that we made and send it. And, you know, we'd ask for an autograph. And sometimes we wouldn't hear back, and sometimes we would get pictures, and we'd hang them on the wall, and they were always very proud of their the pictures that they got. And then when tours would come in, it was great because we had this, like, celebrity wall, and people were like, what is this? And the clients would explain. And it was a very nice thing. One of the people we wrote to was Pricilla Presley,
Ah.
care of Graceland.
Uh-huh.
And she wrote back. She sent a 8x10, but on the 8x10, she addressed it to everybody, like everybody individually.
Oh, that's
She was
nice.
like, hey, Eric, and, you know, so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm sending you this picture, and I hope you enjoy it, but I'm also going to send you a DVD that I hope will answer all of your questions.
Oh.
You know, XOXO, Pricilla.
Wow.
So she sent us a DVD called Elvis by the Presleys. I think that's what it was called. And it was basically her and Lisa Marie, like, talking about Elvis and life with Elvis and what they remembered and giving you a tour of Graceland and talking about all that. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Lisa Marie and Pricilla Presley, especially, you get a big thumbs up from me. Seem like cool people. And I do appreciate that. Just wanted to bring that little story up.
That's pretty cool.
That's my connection to Graceland. That program, by the way, folded.
Oh.
So I took the DVD when it folded.
Ah.
So it's on my shelf right over there. You can touch it later on if you want,
Okay, I do want.
knowing that Pricilla has touched it.
Definitely.
Anyway, so Graceland. Elvis lived there. Probably spent the happier years of his life there. Before he messed things up so bad with Pricilla that she left him, and, you know, then he was kind of, it seems like he kind of got a little bit lost after that. He still had some good times here and there, but life wasn't quite the same, and I think, you know, he kind of missed a steady home life from what I've gathered. I did not know the man, obviously. Died many years before I was born. But Pricilla, she does not talk about his ghost in anything that I've seen.
Okay.
But many people who visit Graceland will talk about his ghost. But again, no big dramatic stories. There's just people that say, oh, I saw him looking out of a second-story window, or I saw him running up the stairs.
Running up the stairs.
Yeah, like he was running, like, oh, there's a tour coming, I better go upstairs. Yeah. It's all right, you're allowed to laugh. It is a comedy podcast. Yeah, like he was chilling in the living room watching TV. And then you heard the door open, like, and this was the parlor. And then, you know, oh no, I better head upstairs. That's my Elvis.
It's a good Elvis.
Yeah. He's also seen by the pool sometimes.
Okay.
And yeah,
who
why
can blame
not?
them?
It's where you'd hang out.
Yeah.
And there's like a pool house back there. Or there was. They just did a whole, like, they just built like a new, like, information center or something down there. Like, they just redid a whole bunch of the property to make it more like touristy.
Ah.
Even more than it was before.
Okay.
So I don't know if this building still stands or not, but there was a pool house out back. And in the last episode we talked about, that was one of the places actually that there's allegedly a picture of Elvis you can see through a glass door, and he's like chilling on the couch. And the other thing I'd point out, when people were talking about Elvis conspiracies,
Yeah.
when they said they saw Elvis or they had a picture of Elvis, it was never fat Elvis.
Well, okay.
And
Makes sense, I guess.
but here's the thing. I know there's exceptions to the rules, obviously. But as far as men go, once they reach a certain age, for the most part, and especially back in those days,
Yeah.
where people didn't know as much about nutrition and you know, exercising wasn't as big a deal and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to believe that Elvis like went into hiding or whatever and reversed the process that he'd begun of becoming, you know, spare tire, middle-aged man. It's possible,
Possible.
but not likely in my opinion,
Right.
that you would see a younger looking, fitter looking Elvis chilling in his pool house or anywhere else for that matter.
I mean, if we're going on the theory that ghosts run upstairs when they hear a tour coming, couldn't they just
Well, if
look how
you're
they
if you're
want?
talking about a ghost, that's maybe possible. I mean, it's all bullshit, so you can make up whatever you want to fit the facts. Like maybe it was the way Elvis saw himself is the way he's presenting, or you know, a skeptical person might say it's the way the fan wants to remember Elvis that they're seeing.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just another thing. I was talking more about, at that moment, I was talking about the conspiracy theories. Like people saying he's actually still alive.
I see.
But I don't think his ghost worked out either. So really, if it's supposed to be like the spirit as it was when you died, like a physical representation of that, then yeah, you would probably still see an overweight Elvis. But who knows? Like I said, maybe it was Elvis in his prime.
Maybe.
But that's the idea. So not a ton of like great like Elvis ghost stories, but there are like psychics and stuff that visit Graceland, or people who claim to be sensitive, whatever that means, to ghostly phenomena. And they all pick out the kitchen.
Oh.
Now, interesting that they would pick out the kitchen. Again, a skeptical person might say, well, if you're a psychic, or you're going to claim to be a psychic, and you want to go into somebody's house and do a completely cold reading, even if you didn't know anything about the person, the room in the house that you would want to pick out as being a special room would be the kitchen. Why, you may ask?
Why?
Because, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I've certainly heard it many times. You're having a party, and somebody inevitably says, oh, I clean up the living room and make it look so nice, and everyone hangs out in the kitchen.
Ah, yes. I have heard that.
Yeah, that happens all the time. The kitchen tends to be the hub.
Yep.
It's where the food is.
Right.
It's where the drinks are.
Right.
So that tends to be the hub of activity in any home. So if you're a psychic, or you want to pretend to be a psychic, a good thing to do is say, wait a minute. I feel, yes, this area here, this kitchen, is that what it is? A kitchen? Just like act like you don't even know. Yeah, I feel like, you spend a lot of time here. Now, Elvis had cooks and everything else, but still, if you're looking for like a hub of a house, a kitchen's a good place to start. So even if you're taking a blind guess.
Yep.
And again, as far as I know, Pricilla hasn't really talked too much about the ghost of Elvis. But I did mention that a lot of people claim to see him peering out windows from the second floor. Interesting. The second floor is off limits to visitors. So you can go visit Graceland, but you can't go up to the second floor.
Interesting.
Now, the theory that the ghostly minded have on this is that's because that's where Elvis's ghost lives.
I see.
And they don't want you invading
Disturbing.
the ghost space.
Got it.
But Pricilla herself says the reason it's blocked off is because those were Elvis's private quarters in life, and they just want to kind of preserve it that way for him in death. And the house is still used by the family, so the family will go up there. Like, it's not off limits to everybody, it's just off limits to the public. Like, they don't want the public going through his bedroom, and especially since that's the room he died in, the bathroom in the bedroom. They don't need people going in and like taking like touristy pictures of like, oh, I'm lying on the floor where Elvis died, or that kind of thing, making it tacky.
Yep.
So that's understandable to me. That seems like a more likely explanation than the ghost of Elvis is up there chilling and doesn't want to be seen by anybody. Because if you were, go ahead.
More likely, but probably a less fun idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were the ghost of Elvis, I don't think I'd have a problem being seen, actually. I'd be like, yeah, I'm a ghost. Like, that's awesome. If they piss me off, I'm just going to bounce because I'm a spirit. I'll just like fade away or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'll hang out for a little while. I'll say hello. I'll let you take some Instagram photos.
You'd be a cool ghost.
Yeah, I would be. Yeah, so his grave is at Graceland. That's another place where people say they see him. But again, no real good stories. We do have a good story.
Oh.
From our next location.
Oh, good.
And not only that, it's a celebrity story. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh.
But we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Hilton.
Okay.
That is a spot that Elvis performed at regularly, and it's also the spot of his final concert. So, if you're going to look away from Graceland for Elvis hauntings, not a terrible place to go looking for him, I guess. Not a terrible place. He might be there
He might.
if he considered it a triumph to be playing Vegas and doing shows there, and if he had a good time. But he's cited in multiple locations. He's cited in multiple locations throughout the hotel. He's sometimes seen in the penthouse suite where he stayed.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. He lived in the room. It was
Yeah.
probably very nice. Probably enjoyed himself there. He's also sometimes seen in the basement because that's where he used to hang out with like the musicians before the show began. There was an elevator they used to take.
Okay.
He's also sometimes seen on that freight elevator,
Oh.
which he used to take to avoid seeing the fans and getting mobbed by them before and
Okay.
after the show. So sometimes he's seen on that elevator. Now, here's where our celebrity ghost story comes in. I guess double because it's a celebrity
Right.
talking about a dead celebrity. Wayne Newton,
Okay.
famous singer.
Yep.
He says he's on stage one night
Mm-hmm.
and he's singing his songs. And suddenly, all the lights in the place go out
Oh.
except for the spotlight that's lighting him.
Oh.
But the band keeps playing. They're just saying, oh, I don't know, the lights are out, but the show must go on, so we're just going to keep playing. Okay, fair enough. So Wayne's looking out. He's looking up at the spotlight operator. Can't really see him. But then, in the balcony over to the right, he sees the outline backlit from the hallway lights, a shadowy figure.
Oh.
First, he doesn't know who it is. He just sees a guy standing there.
Mm-hmm.
But as he focuses on it, he realizes it's Elvis Aaron Presley.
Oh.
He doesn't get into the specifics of how he realized that was Elvis. Because at first he just said like a backlit figure. He was like a shadowy figure.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden he could see his face and everything. And he said that Elvis was looking down at him from the balcony and smiling.
Oh.
And in Wayne's words, I almost said Wayne's World. In Wayne's words, he was smiling and he was at peace listening to Wayne sing.
Oh.
So Wayne Newton had the power to bring peace to Elvis Presley. And he said Elvis was enjoying himself, but then just as suddenly as the lights had gone out,
Yeah.
they turned back on
Oh.
and Elvis is gone.
Is Wayne Newton a reliable source?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
He appears in so that story comes from Celebrity Ghost Stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have like a reenactment going on, but they also show you Wayne sitting there telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to judge people by their appearance in any way, shape, or form, but I do it all the time.
Yes.
And he's definitely had some work done,
Okay.
and he has given himself some crazy eyes. I'll try to, if I can, I'll post the video on the website or on Facebook or whatever. I think I found it on E-Bombs World, but if I can find it on YouTube, I'll post it. And he definitely, I don't know. I mean, if I didn't know Wayne Newton and it was just some guy off the street, I would say, I don't believe what this guy's talking about because he looks crazy as a motherfucker with his crazy ass eyes. But again, it's not fair to judge people.
It's not.
But actually, wait a minute. I take that back because when you look like that because you've had plastic surgery, it's totally fair to judge you. Like, it's one
Yeah.
thing to be born a certain way or to, like, you know, something happened and that's why. But, like, surgery, that's elective. You chose to do that.
That's true.
So I think we kind of can
Feel
judge
free
you.
to judge.
Yeah.
You have my permission.
All right, then. Jen Hen says it's okay. Now, here's one that I think is stupid. But they say there's some spots in Hollywood
Oh.
where you can see Elvis's ghost. Because, of course, he did movies out there. He did, like, 40-something movies over his lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot of movies.
it is. But here's why I don't think haunting Hollywood makes much sense for Elvis. He did these movies,
Yeah.
but he wasn't, like, proud of most of them.
Oh.
They were done because the Colonel, his manager,
Mm-hmm.
like, made this deal and said, "You're going to keep making movies." I think he would have rather concentrated on music, but he was like a teen idol, so his manager wanted him in these movies, even though they got increasingly, like, lame as they went along.
Got it.
I want to say banal. Is that the right word? That's a
It
word
could
that
be.
could work, right?
I have to admit, I haven't seen any Elvis movies, so I don't know if it's the right word, but it's a good word.
All right. I'm punching above my weight as far as vocabulary goes, but giving it a shot. Anyway, not great movies is what I'm trying to say. They were like written so that he could sing a song or two and then, dance around a little bit with an attractive woman. And he wasn't particularly happy. And in fact, a lot of people cite that as kind of like ruining or stalling at least his career.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was a great star in the mid to late 50s. Then he went off to war. Then he came back. He was doing these movies and people didn't really take him seriously because it was like, we're going to a clam bake. It's like, oh, okay, Elvis. And then he went back. He stopped doing the movies and went back to doing the music and ended up in Vegas. So that's how that all happened. But they're saying that at the famous Knickerbocker Hotel, which doesn't really have a super strong connection to Elvis, except that he took some promotional pictures there for his Heartbreak Hotel single in 1956.
Okay.
So 21 years before he died.
It's a long time.
He took some pictures there. So now his ghost is haunting it.
It's a fun name to say. If I were a ghost, I might want to say I hang out at the Knickerbocker Hotel.
Yeah, well, it's, who knows. But anyway, if you're going to Hollywood and you want to stay at the Knickerbocker Hotel, go ahead and give room 1016 a try, because that's allegedly like his main hangout at that hotel. But if you're looking for a good ghost story about it, I couldn't find any.
Oh.
All I could find is that sometimes it's chilly in that room.
Oh. That's not much.
Couldn't just be a breeze or faulty air conditioning.
No, couldn't.
It's got to be the Ghost of Elvis. Another place that this has, like, I guess more of a legit connection, but still, I find it hard to believe that Elvis's ghost would want to hang around there, unless we're believing in parallel ghosts now, that I mentioned earlier, where you can be a ghost, but you're not a ghost stuck in one spot. You can be in many places at once. So maybe these were all spots that were special to Elvis for one reason or another throughout his life. So a little piece of him stayed there. I'm not a big enough Harry Potter fan. Those things that, like, do you know Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Those things that he puts his soul into.
Oh,
not
the
Harry.
Horcruxes.
The what?
Horcruxes.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe like this is like a non-evil version of that.
Maybe.
And his spirit is popping up in these different places. If you go to these places and collect all the
Horcruxes?
Yeah, and put them together, maybe you can make a complete Elvis.
Maybe.
I'm
That's
just
not
saying.
really how the Horcruxes worked.
I don't know. Listen. I've audio read a couple of the books with my clients. I've seen a couple of the movies. I'm not a hater, but it just, I grew up with The Worst Witch.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I'm going to do a whole show about it, but basically it was a children's book series from England.
Okay.
About a girl who goes to witch school.
Oh.
And she's kind of hapless, but in the end she always finds a way.
Uh-huh.
Sound familiar?
It does sound kind of familiar.
And she's got this one teacher who's like a real like hard ass. And she teaches potions. And she's like, you're screwing it up. And she's British and she's got this accent and she dresses all in black.
That sounds pretty familiar.
Uh-huh. But then there's a wise old professor who runs the school. Trust me, I'm going to do a whole episode about The Worst Witch versus Harry Potter and what's the deal, because I definitely feel like there's something going on here. There's a new Netflix series of The Worst Witch. Oh. It's not terrible, but it doesn't hold. The original special had Tim Curry in it.
Oh, well, that's pretty good.
And Charlotte Rae from Facts of Life.
Oh.
Mrs. Garrison.
Okay.
Mrs. Garrett. Mr. Garrison's from South Park. Mrs. Garrett from Facts of Life. And I can't say her name right, but Faizuka Balk from Return to Oz and American History X and a couple other movies. The Craft.
I'm bad with names. I'm sorry.
That's all right. But you might know her if you saw her. She's famous. Anyway, that's The Worst Witch. Subject for another day. Okay. We were talking about Horcruxes. That's what we got. Okay. Let me get back on track. The Ghost of Elvis. You might be able to spot him in Nashville, Tennessee, at the old RCA recording studio. Oh. Because that's where he recorded his first hits. Of course, the recording studio is long gone, like RCA Records
Mm-hmm.
is gone. But they still use those facilities as television studios and TV production and stuff like that. And the stagehands who work there
Mm-hmm.
say that it's pretty easy to conjure up Elvis's spirit, and what he does is he like makes lights go out and bulbs burst and stuff like that.
Oh, because that doesn't happen otherwise.
Never.
Never.
Nope.
How do
Weird
they conjure
things
him?
never happen. It didn't say in what I
Oh.
read.
But it's easy.
Yeah.
Like maybe you say,
You
"Hey,
just say,
Elvis."
Yeah, you just say, "Hey, Elvis," or you say, "That's all right, Mama." Or oh no, it does say if you just mention his name.
Oh, so like Beetlejuice.
So that is it. Yeah, you got to say Elvis Presley 3 times, and then he'll blow up your light bulbs. Yeah, lights blow out, ladders fall down, mysterious bangs.
Oh, bangs.
Yeah, none of those things could possibly be anything other than Elvis coming back to say hello.
I'm convinced.
Yeah. All right, I got one more Elvis ghost story.
Okay.
This is a pretty good one. This story comes from a book, and I forget the exact title, and I didn't write it down in my notes here, but I think it's like Elvis in the Afterlife or something like that, or the Afterlife of Elvis. It's something along those lines. But it's written by a guy named Dr. Moody.
Okay.
And in it, he tells the story of a man from Georgia who was a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy had a son named Tony. Tony was a big Elvis fan.
Mm-hmm.
His whole room was like covered in Elvis posters, and he had all the records and everything. This was, I don't see an exact year here, but it was sometime after Elvis died, obviously.
Well, so you know, I was just thinking, what year are we talking about?
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but he
Okay.
it was after he died anyway. Tony was a big Elvis fan,
Mm-hmm.
and he ran away from home with $2,000.
Oh.
And his idea was, I'm going to go from Georgia to Los Angeles, and I'm going to try to make it as an actor.
Okay.
So, of course, Tony's family they're all worried about him.
Yep.
And his dad is freaking out about it. His dad, remember, is a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
But he's in bed one night.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a dream, saying that in quotations.
Okay.
Because was it a dream? Was it real? I don't know. He has a dream that Elvis Presley himself appears to him,
Uh-huh.
dressed as a police officer.
Whoa.
Because Elvis actually had a love of law enforcement and used to collect police badges, which is something we also talked about in the last episode, because it configured into one of the conspiracy theories about why Elvis had to cover up his own death.
Okay.
Anyway, go back and listen to it. It's a
Yeah.
good episode.
Okay.
So Elvis was a big fan of law enforcement. He collected police badges.
Mm-hmm.
So he says that Elvis appeared to him in a dream, and he said, "Hey, I'm concerned about your son Tony as well. I know Tony. He ran off to L.A. and he's running with a bad crowd now, and he's even started to take drugs.
Uh-oh.
Now I can't personally reach through to Tony. There's something kind of blocking the way, but I know where he's staying in L.A. and I'm gonna give you a description of the place, and it's near a drugstore, and it's right across the street from a diner."
Uh-huh.
And that was the end of the dream. So then, the police officer, they went out looking for Tony, and they found him in a rundown house
Mm-hmm.
near the exact scene that Elvis had described, with the diner and the drugstore nearby.
Ooh.
So after they were reunited and everything, the father
Yeah.
never mentioned that he had had this dream and that Elvis told him where to find his son, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was afraid that the family would be like, "What the fuck are you talking about? You're batshit insane, and we gotta lock you up."
Mm-hmm.
Later, however, Tony was like, "Dad, I might sound crazy, but I gotta tell you something. When I ran away, night after night, I kept having dreams that Elvis was talking to me. And every night, he told me that you were going to come find me and take me home.
Whoa.
And help me turn things around.
Pretty weird.
So even in death, Elvis is looking out for his fans. And TCB, taking care of business. Which, by the way, was one of Elvis's favorite phrases. He had TCB with a lightning bolt. That was like his insignia.
Mm-hmm.
He had it on his glasses, and he had it on his plane. And he made rings for everybody that said TCB with a lightning bolt. See, I do know some Elvis facts.
You do.
I'm an Elvis fan.
Very
I
good.
can't claim to be an expert, but I still know more than most people, probably.
Probably.
All right, Jen.
All right.
We're
Eric.
just about at time.
Oh, good.
I don't know if you have any other thoughts you want to share about Elvis or Ghost in general or ghostly messages or anything.
I don't have any other thoughts to share at this time.
That's okay. So, again, I just want to point you to the website. That's spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. From there, you can find all of our social media links, especially the Facebook page, facebook.com/spookyas. And please don't forget to share the show, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, however you're listening to the show right now. Share it, tell your friends, create more spookaroos. We keep getting bigger and bigger every week, and I truly appreciate it. And I appreciate the nice emails and Facebook comments and messages, and especially those 5-star positive reviews. We just got a new one the other day I'm very happy about. So if you want to continue to make me happy, that's how you can do it, spookaroos. And until next time, thank you, Jen Hen.
My pleasure, Eric.
And the rest of you, don't be afraid. Thank you very much.